Good afternoon, traders. Welcome to Paul's Monday Market Update number 182 for Monday, 28th of April, 2025. I hope you are all well. I hope you are enjoying these rather interesting markets. It's good to be back after last week's break. But we will, after today's session, because it's May Day, next Monday, we'll be back in 2 weeks after this. But anyway, as always, great to have you here. It'd just be wonderful to know, for those of you joining us here for the live session, to confirm that you can hear my voice and that you can see the slides. That would be fabulous. For those of you joining us here for the first time, the Monday Market Update is literally just that. It is me flying through as much as I can cover, okay, over the next 25, 30 minutes, looking at strength and weakness within the FX markets, having a look at some charts of interest, and then a look at the live markets. It is not a signal service. It's not trade recommendations. It's just what I am looking at, which might be of relevance and helpful to yourselves. As always, you're very welcome here, but just remember you're always responsible for your own trading decisions. If you want some additional support and help with your trading, the VTP Traders Accountability Group is now open to join. It's been really good so far. It's an opportunity to have sort of a couple of weekly calls and some accountability in terms of removing bad habits and ensuring that you are trading the best of your abilities. In terms of additional webinars this week, if you want some extra additional educational material, as usual, I'll be doing the Monday Market Matters webinar this afternoon between 2 till 5 o'clock London time. Today, we'll be looking at the inside bar pattern. You can either join us on the QR code or just register on the ActivTrades website. And now every Wednesday evening, okay, 7 o'clock London time, I do an overall market weekly update for our Admiral markets. You can join us either once again on register on the website or looking at the QR code there. Okay, let's dig into the work then, all right? Let's have a little look. So I appreciate if you're joining us for the first time or if you're new to trading, this might appear a little bit overwhelming or a little bit difficult, but I assure you, once you pick it up, it's not too hard at all. This is just pieces from my own model, from my own research that I do at the weekend, where I am looking to identify the strength, trend, and momentum within primarily FX markets, but also indices and commodities markets in an effort to help me make the best use of my time and energy going forward. So where are we? What's this telling us? Well, we are into week 18 of the year already. Where's the strength and where's the weakness? We still have Swiss franc, okay, at top of the pile, which is sort of, just confirming that risk off mentality. But what we've actually had is also we've had Europe worm its way up there into second place, okay, and that has occurred at the expense of the Japanese yen, which is kind of interesting there. And we'll look at Japanese yen in a moment when we look at the live markets. But yeah, Swiss francs are maintaining that risk off, but yen, as you can see, having been kind of, within the top three for the last couple of months, okay, has rolled its way over. Now, remember, what we do have is we should have on Thursday, we should have the Bank of Japan, okay, their policy rate decisions. And whilst people aren't really expecting or forecasting a major difference, people will be interested to sort of see what they have to say and what they kind of what the inflation trajectory is based upon the sort of rather volatile few weeks that we have had. So people will be watching and waiting for that. When it looks at the bottom of the pile, well, we still have Aussie sort of holding it all up, and US dollar remains in the seventh. But as we will look at the dollar majors in a minute, okay. Last week was a bit of an interesting week, okay, in terms of the price action that we saw deliver, and I said we'll look at that in a moment. Sterling has had a little bit of a move up, a little bit of a bump, okay, up to third. As I said, I expect that's probably more to do with the element of Japanese yen falling over, but we've had a good start this morning, okay, in terms of sterling, all right, from last night into this morning, and Swiss franc kind of has drifted away. Now, is that a reflection that people are starting to think that maybe the markets are just shrugging off tariffs, Trump, trade wars, those three T's? They're sort of shrugging that off there. And also, we didn't really have any kind of major sort of say financial commentary over the weekend from President Trump or any of his team. Nothing that was going to shirk markets. Most of those people were, most of those politicians were focused on the Pope's funeral in Rome. So, yeah, their focus was elsewhere. Maybe that's why people have had a little bit of a kind of a risk on sort of session this morning. Okay, and we'll look at that in a moment. Certainly, when I'm looking at sterling and euro, okay, from where we were a few weeks ago, where there's real strength in terms of buying sterling and euro, in terms of the stand environment, is it's not blowing through there, but we are still seeing, as I said, sterling and euro, okay, remaining an element of strength there. I'm going to start to look at the indices. What was interesting is that from the last couple of weeks where it has pretty much all been red, there is a little bit of green coming in terms of the sort of momentum for the US indices. Okay, has turned now. Whether that's I remain to see whether that's just a part of a bit of a relief rally or a bit of a pause. All right, we'll look at the charts themselves in a moment, but a lot of them have come out of that kind of stand selling environment that they had been for the last month or so, and that's something to pick up on. VIX still remains bearish, okay, on that sense. And I'll keep an eye on that. Gold has come out of its buying environment, but Bitcoin is quite happily in its Bitcoin in its buying environment. Maybe we'll have a little look at that at the moment. So, a bit of a couple of shifts, a couple of changes. We've also got quite an interesting week ahead in terms of formal news coming out. Okay, so we're kind of what's the word? We're kind of bookended by elections. All right, we've got today, we've got Canadian elections, and then the weekend coming up, we've got the Australian elections. All right, everyone will be interested in that. Then, of course, we've got it's end of month, so there will be there's always kind of an element of kind of news that's coming out there. Okay, and then of course we're going straight into the new month, and that means of course non-farm payrolls on Friday, which also means that I think Wednesday we've got ADP non-farm numbers. We've all got PCE, okay, on Wednesday afternoon as well. And as I said, yeah, there's quite a busy week in terms of the formal economic data. There is also quite a bit in terms of quite a few of the big companies are have got their earnings this week, so it's going to be a busy week, and it's going to be an interesting week. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of the charts of interest. So, as I said, there's quite a few companies, quite a few. Well, there is a lot of quantity of companies that are releasing their earnings, but there are also some of the big guys today. So, so in fact, later this week you've got basically Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and you also have Amazon. And so I thought we'd I'd put Amazon up here. This is the weekly chart of Amazon. I could have picked pretty much any of those tech companies after last week, but what I was intrigued with Amazon was that Amazon, a lot of them, those companies have put in pretty similar price action over that last month with all the kind of the travails with the Trump and tariff, etc. But if you look at that on the weekly chart, Amazon printed a bullish engulfing candle there. Okay, around that kind of $180. So for me, would not surprise me. Okay, if we're sort of 200 becomes the magnet as we're with the 50 there. Okay, and the 20. Is that where we get dragged up to this week, just in front of the news coming out on I think it's the Thursday after close. Okay, so you can see that was just a great trend, wasn't it? Okay, and we came off there. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and stuff about how it did. I was looking at all of these companies, how they were treating the 50 period moving average. It had bounced off it last time, but we all fell through. But yeah, interesting, that bullish engulfing candle. Okay, there. And as I said, my view would be we drag our way towards 200 this week in front of the number. So that's what I'd be looking at for Amazon. A world away from the world of your Mag 7 and the tech companies. Okay, here we have DPZ, Domino's. All right, so I'm sure all of you have will have known them. All of you will have used them at some point in your life, whether you love them or loathe them. All right, that's your own personal choice. But we're just looking here because actually they are releasing their earnings today before American openings. Once again, this is the weekly chart. Intriguingly, when I look at this chart, what my eye kind of sees is that the big round numbers have been pretty relevant, okay, for the last few years there in terms of. But let's just bring this up. At $300, okay, has acted as support. $400 has acted as either places where its prices as pivot or acted as support, and then also $500 as well, okay, where we tipped off just a couple of months ago. We earlier last year we ran up and then basically double topped before. Where do we go? 400. So it'd be interesting to see the pre-market is down by about sort of $11-12. I'm curious to see what those numbers are. My view would be that if you were looking to trade this, if you're bullish, if the numbers are bullish, well, then $500 has to be the first number, doesn't it, that you're looking for? Otherwise, those are poor. You're down towards the 200 at 410 or that $400 mark. So yep, it's been probably a little bit bullish the last couple of weeks. What can I say is that everyone's a bit stressed, so probably reaching for pizza. So I'm being a bit flippant there, but there's more truth in that than you would realize. But as I said, those I've been looking at 500 and 400. Those are the big numbers of interest to me on that. Okay, and we'll see what they how they A, what the numbers are released, and B, how that looks in the pre-market. It could make for an interesting session today. And then, as I said, as well as all those tech companies and dominoes, we also have we've got Exxon and Chevron here. Okay, they have got their earnings before they open on Friday. Interestingly, once again, when I look at this, okay, when I look at this weekly chart of CVX, my view would be that for the best part of the kind of last 3 years, we have mostly spent most of our time once again between kind of a range between $140 and $170. Every time we've got up there or got out of it, it's come back in and gone to the other side. Nice sort of double top there, wasn't it? Before we come back down to that kind of 140 now. We kind of got almost close to it and then collapsed, and we're beneath it at the moment. But I wonder if is that a kind of a weekly double bottom. Certainly, last week's candle was it's a bullish pin bar as part of a double bottom. I wonder if if we can get an opportunity to at least drive back up towards the kind of those moving averages at around about 150. That's what I'd be looking for here this week. And that might kind of as if we shift more towards that kind of away from the risk off, more towards a risk on. Okay, if everybody's a little sort of shrugging off the travails of the last month or so, well, that might have an impact on oil prices rising. In which case, that will not be bad for these oil companies either. So that's what I'll be looking at for there. Okay, for those two. I think that's all I did. That's all I did for this week. So just the three, but let us switch across to the live markets now and see what's going on there. So if you just bear with for a moment, we'll switch across and take a look. So just bear with me for a moment, please. Boom, boom, boom. Over here. Okay, so once again, I hope you can still hear me. I hope you can see the charts. What have we got here? What are we looking at? This is just an indices chart. So on the weekly, I've got Dow, NASDAQ, SP 500, Russell, FTSE, Nikkei, DAX, and oil. So we've just looked at CVX. I mean Chevron. Is that a kind of a bit of a bounce off 60 there? All right. I'll be intrigued to see whether that has the opportunity to sort of drift its way up, because if it does, that will drag Chevron with it. So that's what I'll be looking at. That's what I'll be looking at there. When I'm looking at the big indexes and the weekly chart, if you remember, we just looked at Amazon there, and Amazon printed a bullish engulfing candle there. But then so did the Nasdaq, so did the S&P 500, so did the Russell. And the Dow, is it was a bullish candle closing above 40,000, but these ones were engulfing candles. Okay. that kind of gives me an indication here that perhaps basically at the moment, that kind of the risk-off sentiment is waning, all right, and also what we're seeing is a little bit of bullishness. People thinking that there will be some sort of deal, okay, done with the majority of people, all right, and and that is seen as is a kind of a bit of a, some might call it a relief rally, some might call it a dead cat bounce, however you wish to label it. You can choose your own words. What we're looking at is like, does that have any follow through? Can that work its way? In which case, for Russell, back up above 2,000, and that number for me would be bullish. S&P 500 back up, back up above 50. The 50 period moving average would be bullish for me. Same with Nasdaq and same with Dow. Okay, that's what I'd be looking for to sort of kind of give me confirmation that yep, we're doing that. Certainly, when we look at into Europe, okay, and we look at the DAX, look at that last week. Okay, that was a really strong bullish week. That's been a real kind of strong V-shaped recovery there quite quickly, isn't it? And now you'd be looking at, well, I'd be looking at, well, does it basically take a breather before kind of a assault on those highs? That's what I'll be looking for, all right? Even Nikkei, okay, last week had a good week. Even the FTSE managed to sort of end the week closing above the 50 and just above the 20. So, as I said, people are kind of almost sort of, markets are just almost shrugging off that kind of that negativity of where we were a month or so ago, and sort of if there are no bad news stories this week, okay, in terms of both the formal economic data we're looking for and also, President Trump and his team and other people making their comments, well, then you'd have to look at, do we go into May and actually have quite a bullish May after what was a bearish March, okay, and a struggling April? Is this setting up May for a good month, or as I said, is it just a bit of a dead cat bounce? All right, it's I think over the next week or two it's gonna be rather interesting in that sense, okay, and yeah, we'll see what it shows us. Certainly when we look at thing, as I said, Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin. We talked about this, okay, a couple of weeks ago about at the 50. We talked about on the weekly chart on the 50 has acted as nice support, and we were talking about was it going to act as support again, or was it going to break and flip? In which case, we really were looking moving down towards a kind of past 60,000. But as you can see, not only did we bounce nicely, giving us a nice opportunity, okay, nice 50 period moving average bounce, but last week we had a really strong bullish week, and okay, we closed back up above that weekly 20, which is it's that all of that is bullish there. Everybody that's that's very bullish there, okay. That people again are getting their kind of, let's say, maybe their risk mojo back. That is just one indication of it. Looking at kind of, let's say, the old school, silver has kind of, from that real big sell-off from the weekly, sub $30. It is basically, working its way up there, close above $33 last week. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the most bullish of candles, but it was a bullish, bullish close up at 33. Okay, that's what we're seeing there. Probably what's interesting and will lead us into the next couple of charts is gold on the weekly chart, having done its fabulous run last week. It ends as a as a bearish reversal pin bar. Now, it's too early to say that is the end of the gold's run. All right, I think it would be very presumptuous to do that. But certainly, this year, as you can see, we've pulled away from those moving averages. We've been going vertical, and as I said, when price starts going vertical, if you're in it, you want to tighten up your stop. But if you're on the sidelines, you want to stay on the sidelines, because you do not want to be chasing, okay, a price that's going vertical, because this is what happens. You get the reversal like that. So you can see for yourself on the daily chart, having had a couple of weeks of great run, you can see that basically it's yeah, it reversed itself there. The highs, although I'd be looking at maybe there's a bit of a shelf there around about what 3,300, 3,250 there. I'd be interested to see, does that shelf break and fall away? Part of that, okay, will also have an indication on what we see with the dollar, and also what we see with the general risk appetite there. Remember, we were just talking there that the indices look bullish, okay. Even tech stock like Amazon had a bullish week, okay. gold, which has been the sort of go-to during this particular period, had a pretty strong bearish week. And then if we look at the dollar charts, okay, and this is my my dollar profile. Even if we look at the dollar index, having had a really strong sell-off, we can see last week was one swallow doesn't make a summer, but it kind of it's a bullish pinball there. I'm a bit surprised it didn't hit 100 last week. That's what I thought we'd get dragged towards. We pushed lower before moving higher, so you can see how that particularly played out. Of course, it really has to get above 100. I'd say actually even just let's filling that gap up there. Let's just I'll be looking at that there, okay. Wanting to get above that, above 100, above that, above the 20 period moving average would be, a bullish move. But certainly, when you're seeing gold reversing and also a respite rally, that kind of starts to get us interested. Certainly as well, when I start to see, how it looks against some of the other currencies. So euro dollar, okay, almost like gold, inverse to the dollar index, okay. That last week printed a bearish reversal pin bar. Dollar against Swiss franc, okay. Remember, Swiss franc's top of the stand, but last week, okay, it still printed a kind of a bullish engulfing candle pin bar. All right, what we saw even with dollar against Japanese yen. Dollar against Japanese yen, which has been in a fantastic downtrend. Last week we printed, a bullish reversal pin bar. Cable, which we're looking more in depth there, but the weekly chart, okay, last week, all right, we printed, a bearish pin bar. Perhaps not so much to Aussie, but a little bit on Kiwi, okay, a little bit there on Kiwi, and dollar CAD was a bit different, but that doesn't surprise me, okay, based upon we've got Canadian elections. That I think that will show its colours later this week once we start to get an idea there. So you've seen those indices have had a bit of a they had a bullish week. The dollar downtrend, okay, took a little bit of respite, and we saw that across a lot of other major currencies and things like gold. So when I see, let's say, coordinated price action on weekly charts across quite a few instruments and asset classes, it is always worth sitting up and taking notice of how that looks to how's that's looking to play out for us. Let's have a little switch across it. Yeah, Japanese yen. Okay, so when we looked at the STAM, the Japanese yen has kind of rolled off from being at the top of the pile. It's kind of dropped to the fourth. This is my Japanese yen profile here. So I've got dollar yen, euro yen, Aussie yen, CAD yen, pound yen, Swiss yen, Kiwi yen, and the Nikkei. So they're all on the 4-hour chart. Last week, Nikkei had a kind of a bullish week there, didn't it? Dollar, as we said, look, dollar basically on the 4-hour chart, okay, had a bullish week, so yen weakness. Euro, okay, last week had the same, okay, strengthening against the yen. Aussie, even Aussie and Kiwi, okay, which have been pretty, the bottom of the pile in terms of their 4-hour charts. They both strengthened along with Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Sterling strengthened against the Japanese yen, okay. Swiss franc, okay, which is always a bit of an interesting one because it's like a risk-off battle. Had a little bit of a drift its way, but then basically nice bullish engulfing key reversal candle, pop its way up there, back down, and now we're getting caught between the 20 and the 50. That'll be interesting to see if that just kind of coils up before the Bank of Japan on Thursday. So as you can see, the kind of yen weakened considerably there last week, and maybe it's a run in, maybe it's running before the Bank of Japan, but maybe it's an overreaction to as I said, to the tariffs and people just shredding or not shredding or just shrugging off all of that negativity. But that's what I see there on those Japanese yen charts. Let's finish on sterling as always. Bring that up. So, as I said, sterling has had a little bit of a bump. If I look at this on the daily charts, okay, so pound against dollar, it has been strong. I thought maybe we were coming off at the start of last week, but we're kind of holding up there. As I said, pound against Japanese yen has been strengthening. We're back up above the daily 50. Pound against Swiss franc, okay, remember Swiss franc's top of the pile. That's still managed to mostly strengthen over the last week. Euro, against sterling has been down, indicating sterling strength. Interestingly, pound against Aussie, kind of a little bit sideways. Pound against Canadian dollar, I'd look at that as kind of a little bit of an ascending triangle, but it's just grinding its way up. Pound against New Zealand dollar is kind of like, a little bit been in a little bit of a sideways move there. It's kind of interesting that the Aussie and the Kiwi, which have been kind of bottom of the pile, they have held up, shall we say, as opposed to what we've seen dollar, yen, Swiss franc. Okay, and is that an indication there that a further indication that there is a swing towards a kind of the risk on assets? Okay, that maybe that's what we're seeing. So we will see this week whether we get that to confirmed. Okay, in the price action itself. Okay, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's draw it to a close there. Okay, we finish in front of our time for once in a long while, but there has been an awful lot going on. As always, I hope you found that useful. I hope that's given you a little bit of insight, okay, into how markets are reacting. As always, I wish you the very best of success in your own trading and investing endeavors this week. Remember, as I said, it's May Day Monday next Monday, so we will be back in 2 weeks' time. And until then, trade well, everybody. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Many thanks. You're very welcome, Howard. Thanks very much. You're welcome, Sebastian. Thanks.